The key to all this is how many descendants you leave behind you. And any traits that increase the number of descendants you leave behind you will tend to stay in the gene pool. If women are generally the ones that give birth, that lactate, that raise children, it would be very surprising if there wasn't some kind of psychological orchestration that helped women achieve those tasks and made those kinds of tasks particularly pleasurable to women.
We looked at babies who were 1 day old, and again we presented them either with a mechanical object or a face to look at, and filmed how long does the baby look at each of these two objects. And we find that more boys look longer at the mechanical object, and more girls look longer at the face, even on the first day of life. So this is before toys have been introduced or various cultural biases or prejudices have been introduced.
Baron Cohens funn tyder på at disse interesseforskjellene må ha oppstått før barna ble født, I fosterlivet.
What we know is that boys and girls are producing different amounts of hormones, but particularly testosterone, that boys are producing twice as much testosterone as girls. And this hormone, testosterone, influences the way the brain develops. We've measured the testosterone when the baby is in the womb, and we've waited till the child is born, and we've looked at their behavior. And what we found was that the higher the child's testosterone prenatally, the slower they are to develop language when they're a small child, the less eye contact they make, again, at the age of 1 or 2 years old. So the more testosterone is associated with slower language development and slower social development.
Så mange kjønnsforskjeller kan egentlig komme av ulikt testosteronnivå. Men hva skjer hvis et jentefoster får unormalt mye testosteron?
It's a genetic condition where you produce too much testosterone. And girls with this condition show a very masculine pattern of toy preferences. We followed these children. They're now about 8 years old, and so we're interested to see how they're turning out. And what we find is that as they get older, the children who had higher testosterone have more difficulties with empathy, with recognizing other people's emotions, or taking somebody else's perspective. But they also have a much stronger interest in systems, in understanding how things work. So even if you ignore what sex somebody is and just look at their hormone levels, you can predict their pattern of interests.
Hormonforskjeller ser ut til å skape mange av de forskjellene vi ser mellom gutter og jenter. Og disse hormonforskjellene styrt av ulike gener på X- og Y-kromosomet. Men hva kommer disse genetiske forskjellene av? Hvor kommer disse ulike genene fra? Anne Campbell forstår mennesket ut fra Darwins teori om at våre egenskaper et resultat av en lang utsilingsprosess.
The key to all this is how many descendants you leave behind you. And any traits that increase the number of descendants you leave behind you will tend to stay in the gene pool. And so that's what's selecting in particular traits, both in males and in females.
Så hvorfor har evolusjonen gjort kvinner og menn forskjellige?
If women are generally the ones that give birth, that lactate, that raise children, it would be very surprising if there wasn't some kind of psychological orchestration that helped women achieve those tasks and made those kinds of tasks particularly pleasurable to women. So things like empathy in women, things like avoiding dangerous confrontations where you may be hurt or injured, things like avoiding social exclusion, being pushed out of the group. All of those are good things. All of those mean that you are more likely to survive and to reproduce and to leave children who themselves also reproduce.
Og ifølge Campbell det sannsynligvis også derfor dagens kvinner mer orientert mot andre mennesker enn det menn
We know from many psychology studies one of the biggest sex differences is that if you put people under stress, for example, if you say to them, in about half an hour we're going to be giving you some quite painful electric shocks, we're getting all the equipment ready, so you'll have to wait. Would you like to wait by yourself or would you like to wait with someone else? Women will choose to be with other people. Men typically under stress choose to be alone. They don't want to be with others.
Menn og kvinner i 2010 fortsatt preget av gener som ble utviklet for hundretusenvis av år siden.
That's why women have entered nursing, medicine, social work, teaching. All these kind of areas are areas of cooperative exchange where women seem to feel most at home, most comfortable. I mean, of course, there are big overlaps between the sexes, huge overlaps. There are women that are extremely gifted at engineering, physics, chemistry, and so on. But in a sense, that's less typical, I would say, of female interests than it is of male interests.
Jeg tenker at evolusjonen sikkert er viktig, men kan ikke dagens kjønnsforskjeller likevel best forklares med at vi behandler gutter og jenter forskjellig fra dag 1?
Now, we know that sex differences in some areas are really quite large. So I just find it hard to believe that a very, very subtle difference in the tone of voice you use or how long you make eye contact or something like that could really have such a profound effect on the interests and activities and preferences that children show.
Det er på tide å oppsummere litt. Kan vanlige folk likevel ha rett i at det er noen medfødte biologiske grunner til at gutter og jenter har forskjellige interesser? Jeg synes det er en del ting som peker i den retning. Men hvis det er sånn at kjønnsforskjellene ligger i genene og i hormonene, hvorfor er det da sånn at jenter i mindre likestilte land har mer lyst til å lære om tekniske ting enn jenter i Norge?
It's an interesting thing, but the more you free people in society, the more you open opportunities for people to do anything they want, the more likely it is that any kind of genetic predisposition they have will be able to express itself.
In the gender egalitarian countries like Norway, you really are free to follow your inclinations. You know, in a poor country, you're probably worried just about getting a job. You just want a job. And if it's computers that are going to get you that job in India, for example, you'll go for it, even if you're a woman. But, you know, in gender egalitarian countries, North America and Europe, I think people feel freer just to pursue what they're truly interested in. And my point is, men and women are interested in somewhat different things.